Welcome to the Elevate Babe podcast. I'm Antonia and thank you so much for joining me on this podcast. This is episode 2. I am so excited to announce. So I am going to be releasing these podcasts every Tuesday. So it would be amazing if you would like to join me every Tuesday to elevate your life. So basically this podcast is about health, wealth, manifestation and more, and just all the tips, tricks, tools, tactics and techniques I can give you to help elevate your life. I'm a big believer in if you put your mind to it, you could absolutely do it, but you have to want it. That's what I have found myself personally over life. And I do find that if I put my mind to something, I can absolutely achieve it. So it's my aim to try and help you do the exact same thing and just to be able to basically believe in yourself. Because I just know that there's so many people out there, they're just stuck in the 9 to 5 and stuck in a vicious cycle, whatever that might be, in a life ship, in a partnership, in a friendship, workship, whatever it might be, and just kind of, probably finding it difficult to figure out a way to have that little exit, to change, to want to better themselves or to achieve things that they think is out of their grasp. I mean, I'm here to try and break through that for you and with you. Amongst other things, I got my certificate in life coaching and also hypnosis and NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming. And it's something I have had an interest in for a very long time and something I have followed. So I do know a lot about the mind and ways you can work with your mind in order to change it and change patterns to be able to break out of different cycles that you might be in. Anyway, that is what all the future podcasts are going to be about. Just different pieces of advice, little nuggets of inspiration and more nuggets of motivation. And that's what I want to do, is to bring you motivation and inspiration on a weekly basis. Besides that, I really want to, it's my vision basically to grow a community of people that are the same, that just maybe people that I can help along the way, people like that feel like they're struggling, people like maybe feel that they are just maybe finding it difficult to step out of their comfort zone as well. It's something I think we all absolutely struggle with, and it's discipline is what it is. I think we all struggle with that a little bit as well. Although saying that, you do show up for your 9 to 5, which is helping to build somebody else's dream. But then in the weekends or after work, people find it difficult to show up for their own dreams. If you can show up for somebody else, you can show up for yourself. And that's the way I look at it. Although, as I say already, sometimes in the evenings when you come home from work, all you want to do is like Netflix and chill, And so therefore it's just never necessarily easy, because by the time you walk the dog, cook the dinner, feed the kids, whatever, talk to your partner, do the washing up, bring out the bins, all of these lovely domestic things that we're all bogged down with on a daily basis, then it's basically time to sit down and put your feet up, and then it's time to go to bed. So I totally understand if you are struggling to kind of break the routine, break the cycle and get out of your comfort zone, because so did I. And I'm getting out of my comfort zone right now by doing this podcast and by sticking to doing this podcast every single week. That is going to be my challenge, because obviously it's hard to keep things consistent. It's hard to do something every week. So I'm going to try and do this every single week, every Tuesday for at least a year to see how we get on with it. And even then I'm going to try and keep it going after that, obviously, but I'm just going to give it a year at least of absolutely showing up for myself every single week consistently to grow this podcast, Elevate Babe, and bring it to you, hopefully giving you inspiration and motivation, as I mentioned. So anyway, with no further ado, rather, I knew I was getting that wrong. Today's podcast is actually kind of a little bit random, but I have come across lots of different situations, and there's a lot on social media, of course, as well these days, that kind of talks about women in particular that choose to maybe not be in a partnership or a relationship, in a marriage basically, or even choose not to have kids. I just wanted to give my take on that really, because I am kind of one of those, to be honest. I have never been more comfortable and content in my life being single, honestly. I'm kind of on a little bit of a work sabbatical, But I really needed to take time to work on my own projects that I really want to put out to the world. One of them being this podcast. And I find that when I was working 9 to 5, and then, your friends the weekend to be like, oh, what are you up to? Do you want to do something? And it's like, oh, well, actually, I kind of want to do my own thing. And sometimes because they may not have the same sort of ambition creatively as you have, they would kind of find it a bit odd, maybe, that, let's say, you would want to not hang out or go for dinner and things like that and rather stay at home and work on your projects. But it's because I am quite creative and I have a whole plethora of ideas I want to put out there. And that's one of the reasons why I'm going to be talking on the podcast today about, being alone is actually a life hack. Because I think we give our time away too often, too many times to too many people on a consistent, regular basis. It's about the only thing that's consistent. But I'm going to be talking about that today. And that is one thing, is that being by yourself shouldn't be something that is looked down upon or frowned upon. It's actually powerful. It's far, far more powerful to be by yourself than it is to be with somebody else, because then you can just be codependent and reliant on them, or have them to just, be your backup, or just to be able to maybe even have them be your shoulder to cry on or fall back to. It's your comfort zone. Being in a partnership is basically your comfort zone. It's like, okay, I know what this is about. I can do this. Another thing as well is just having no regret. Again, going back to being alone and being in your own power and working on your projects. Besides this podcast, one of my other projects is I have several different ideas for different books that I want to write, and I've just started now beginning one of them. I mean, I would like to do a memoir down the line, but before that, I have 2 very strong story ideas and one just other kind of fun book that I would like to do, and then other maybe books. There's loads of books, but 2 big stories anyway, that I like, 2 big novels I want to write. And the stories are completely different to each other, but both of them actually came to me, funnily enough, in a dream. So, and they were very strong and very vivid. And so I'm like, you know what, that would make a fantastic book or story or movie or something. So I'm going to make it into a book. So now on my little sabbatical, I'm kind of beginning that. So I myself am beginning to write my own book, starting with my own novel after years and years and years of procrastinating, not knowing where to start, not really kind of sure how the whole book is going to go, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, I came across this competition actually that's closing on Friday, which I need to kind of get my skates on about, with the Irish Writers Centre. And it basically is a international debut competition. So it's international, so it's not just for Irish people. It is, as I say, closing actually this Friday, the 14th of September, but there's loads of different competitions all over the world. So, if this one doesn't, if you don't get in on time for this one, it'll probably be open again next year. And, there's loads of other ones out there too. But basically you had to write 5,000 words. So I decided to write 5,000 words in the first 3 chapters. And the chapters that you do submit do have to be consecutive as well. So I have the 3 chapters written. I just need now to edit it and then put a synopsis together, a bio together, and all of that. So today is Monday. I'm recording this podcast for Tuesday, and I am going to have that done by Friday. Fingers crossed. But at least I have a little goal to work towards. But I find writing is so easy for me. I mean, all I have to do is think of an idea and I'm off. So that's one of the projects anyway that I'm looking to do. Other projects I'm looking to do are music. So I'm currently learning to DJ. I've got a grasp of it a little bit. I need to just do a bit more practice. And I'm finding it so much fun. I don't know why I didn't do it years ago. I did try to do it years ago. Again, literally, I think, when I was in my late teens, early 20s, I bought belt drive, DJ in a box, decks. Didn't have a fucking clue how it worked. didn't really have any records. Someone did give me a loan of their records who was a DJ, and they were like, oh yeah, by the way, I'm giving you a loan of records. That's something that, DJ just don't do. I'm like, okay, thanks. Anyway, didn't even use them, so was a waste on me. And then later on, a couple of years later, I bought CD decks. So, because I had so many CDs and, a stereo CD player, like this is back in the early 2000s, I then didn't even learn that. Again, I didn't even know where to start. But looking at it now, the CD DJs that I had, it's so basic. You had like two channels and, you just mix them into each other. I mean, how hard can it be? Anyway, nowadays it's got a lot more technical. But nonetheless, I have now started and on a little controller, and it's just like, wow, this is actually way simpler than I thought. And it's kind of opened my mind a bit more because I was always into music, but never really, I suppose, I just sat down and never had the discipline to do it. And so here I am doing it and I'm going, wow, this is amazing. This is so simple. I just need to practice a bit more, put more time into it. And so again, if I wasn't sitting in my own power, I probably wouldn't have the time to do it. But I'm blessed and I do. So I'm working on that. But I'm also learning music production on a software program called Ableton, which is quite tricky. And I know I can grasp, but I, again, just need to give it that extra time and consistency. Maybe doing it every day for a little bit of time, like an hour or whatever. I initially wanted to do Logic Pro because it's a bit more navigational and easier. But the course where I was learning the DJ, basically like learning how to DJ, they just opened a new program where they were doing Ableton and all the DJs use Ableton. So I was like, oh look, sure, sign me up. I can learn how to do it on the same course. So that's another project. And this podcast is another project. And my next other project now is going to be bloody getting fit. I'm just like so stiff at my old age. And I am so sedentary and stagnant because even when you're in work, you're sitting in a chair, you're sitting in the car, you're sitting at a bar, you're sitting on the couch, and that's all I basically do. So I need to start working out. So I'm going to start maybe Pilates and going to the gym at some point in time quite soon. So all of these beautiful things that I'm doing for myself, I wouldn't be able to probably do or have the time to do if I had somebody else that I had to, constantly kind of deliberate with on like what I'm doing or, just what's the word, I suppose. Like it is like when you're in a relationship, it's constant communication. Compromise, that's the word. I wouldn't have to compromise my time. My time is my time. So, another thing as well is just like absolutely, as I mentioned, having no regret whatsoever. So, you're getting to do your own projects. You're able to spend your time or waste your time whatever way you want, which is amazing. Plenty of me time, healthcare, making some delicious food for yourself, having a delicious bottle of wine to yourself, all of these little things. So basically you could say it's like the treat yourself economy pretty much. So I'm all for that, absolutely. And just complete financial freedom. You don't have to, compromise financially on anything else. It's just whatever you want to do is all for yourself. Now, you might think that sounds selfish, but it's absolutely not. When you're giving your time away and having less time for yourself, that is actually selfish because you are put on this planet not to be in a relationship. You weren't put here to get married. Who the hell is put on earth to get married? It sounds ridiculous when you think about it. Marriage is only a construct as well, by the way. I'll get into that a little bit later. But you're put here on this planet to give inspiration and motivation to others. We're all here to help each other along the way. You're not here to raise kids. You're not here to, cater to them. You're not here to give your life away to them. You're not here to give your life away to a partner or to even a job, at that matter, a 9-to-5 corporation. You're here to just literally be you and inspire people and help people, along the way, whether it's by your art, by your creativity, by just your kindness, by your support, by whatever way it may be. But I'm telling you now, any women that, or men or partners, whatever, that have kids, that then just give up their entire life for their kids, they're doing themselves a massive, massive disservice. And not only are they doing a massive disservice to themselves, they're doing a massive disservice to humanity in general. You know, raising kids should be, I mean, they do say it takes a village. And I think it should be a village that's involved, because literally that's the reason why that quote is there, like, or that saying rather is there, that it takes a village, is because you need your time to yourself. It's kind of also like, as well, like when people become famous at a really young age, you know, they stop kind of growing as such. Like they're working their whole life to get some form of success. And then suddenly at 16, they reach success, you know, some sort of fame, you know, some child stars or whatever, like Britney or any of these fabulous child stars, because, you know, they're just in a bubble from there on, being protected and being, you know, you got to do this, you got to go here, you got to go there, talk to this person, do this, da 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 da. They kind of stop growing because they're just, you know. So the same thing, I think, when people have kids, they kind of stop growing when they have kids. Like, I kind of dated a guy not too long ago, and like he had a 14-year-old son, and he kind of seemed to be sort of behind the current time by about 14 years. You know, it's like, dude, that's not cool anymore. Like, or that's such a dad joke, or God, yeah, he's, you know, it's like, no, recycling bugged me. No clue at all about recycling. It was throw away and everything and anything. And I would, when you recycle, you're meant to wash, clean and dry the items like plastic and tin and things like that. And he just thought that I was going fucking mental. He just thought that I was actually, I was literally just completely going overboard. I was like, no, dude, I'm just doing the basics. That's what you're meant to do with recycling. You know, even cooking, like, you know, he would just kind of cook, he'd buy just ready-made meals and eat them. It's like, dude, yeah, you need to eat like veg, you know? And he sent me a picture of a plate with some peas, and I was like, he has to be taking the piss. Anyway, I think he liked to wind me up as well, to be honest. But it's just like, you know, and that person was 48, you know? They were no spring chicken. And it was shocking because, like, I was like, wow, you, like, are just... He would talk a lot about, like, when he used to go out and when he used to party and stuff before. I was like, yeah, I think we all kind of did that. Like, it's not special on you, you know? And there was even like photos that we had that were very similar of like visiting San Francisco and Alcatraz and stuff like that. And he just kind of thought he was cool, like, you know, because he was over there doing, it's like, yeah, no, we've all traveled, like, you know, it's kind of something you do when you're younger. It's not like, you know, oh wow, man, that's so cool, you've been there and you've been there. It's like, you know, we've all been there. And it just kind of seemed, but anyway, like, my point is that I kind of just noticed like that he had just totally stopped growing, obviously, at a certain point in time, because he was quite immature and had an immature I suppose, mindset and ideals, you know. So that's just kind of like one other thing that just, I guess, kind of puts me off as well. Not necessarily having kids, like, but you're meant to continue to grow as an adult. You're not meant to just completely give your life away and give up, because, as I say, like, you know, when you have a kid, you do kind of just, your life stops there. It's all about them, and it shouldn't be all about them whatsoever. You should hire a nanny, you should get the father to look after, you should get your parents, your grandparents to look after, your neighbor. You know, it should be spread out, because that also gives a child a good kind of rounded sort of growing up understanding of like different people and different rules and different situations and how to deal with people, and, you know, how they deal with you. And I think that actually kind of gives a more rounded approach to life for the child growing up, rather than just being under the mother's thumb, let's say, for want of a better term. And, you know, that's all they know is like, oh, the mother said this, the mother said that. And then you're kind of just raised under one personality, which I think is like a little bit stifling. And I kind of think it gives you a very narrow-minded view then of the world when you grow up, because you're just after being influenced completely 100% by one person, you know. And then, of course, when the kid grows older and, you know, you're left alone, then you're like, okay, why did I just, like, you know, give the last 18 years of my life to this kid and he's now fucked off to Australia or whatever, you know? It's just the unfortunate situation that can be at hand. But at the end of the day, that's somebody that basically is afraid of being alone. I think a lot of people have kids because they're afraid of not having a legacy, when in the reality, no one cares. When you die, it's just going to be, it is what it is. It's irrelevant. So you don't need to leave any legacy here on this planet. And it's also because maybe they might kind of feel so insecure, unknowingly, subconsciously within themselves, they don't know what to do with their life and they want to have some sort of purpose. So therefore their purpose is to have kids. Again, not exploring the true depth of your own personality, your own talents and who you are. So at the end of the day, I would say that there are so many different reasons as to why it's not necessarily always the best thing to do for people to get married and have kids, because marriages obviously are a whole construct as well, in the sense like that it's difficult to be able to navigate a marriage. There's just so many bells and whistles to it. But anyway, I digress. So I have some notes that I was just like, had it here in front of me. So yeah, you get more time to do your own projects. I mentioned that. You also have a better social life when you're alone and you're single. You get to go out more, get to go places, meet people, do things. You get to travel. There's so many more amazing things you can do as well, like when you're in your own power. So yeah, so being in a couple or married, it's completely manufactured. So basically the reason why marriage is a thing is because the Catholic Church invented it. That's the reason, because they were trying to use it as a form of control and also money. So when you get married in a Catholic church, back in the day, it was like you have to get married under the eyes of God and blah, 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 blah. When in actual fact, churches are the most inorganic buildings. They're just full of concrete and brick and mortar and trimmed with gold and other fancy things. But real God is in nature. So getting married in the woods or by a beach is far more in tune than in a church. It was basically invented so that every time you had a kid and every time that kid was baptized, made their communion or confirmation, you'd get married, you have to pay the church. So, not only was it a form of control, but it was also they were profiting from it. So it's insane. And then, of course, like the government is part of it too. So, like, there's tax incentives for couples that are married. It's like, my God, it's crazy. So that's why it's a construct. So it's not something that we should do. People kind of feel they want to get married because they want that person to be committed. They want that person to show their commitment and be tied to them in some way, shape, or form, obviously legally. So therefore, it's proving something to them. But in actual fact, it's just an absolute headache. Because what if it doesn't work out and you have to get divorced? Divorcing is probably one of the worst experiences that you will ever go through in life. Now, I haven't been divorced myself, haven't been married either for that matter. My grandmother did go through divorce, but that was before I was born. But it's just, when you witness divorce with anybody, be it even like, reality TV stars, people on social media talking about it, friends talking about it, friends of friends or whatever, it's just messy as hell. So I think save yourself the headache and just don't get married in the first place is what I would reckon. I mean, look at Goldie Hawn. I mean, she's with, what's his name? Kurt, I think. And, they've been together for 20 years and they're not married. So it really works out for some people, like just to kind of have a very communal relationship together, and just makes it easier to walk away as well whenever you need to. Being married doesn't really say anything. So if you were married, it doesn't necessarily mean like that person's going to be with you forever and you're tied to that person forever. It's only a contract to say that, like, yeah, look, I committed and that was it, and now we can maybe get less tax. It's way more expensive to get divorced than it is to get married, and it's also a hell of a lot more heartache. So yeah. So back in the early days, let's say back in the day when, we were, I don't want to go and say cavemen and women, but when we were just, I suppose, more basic, before we had all the fabulous luxuries and everything we have these days, men did serve a purpose. Women, I suppose, their purpose would be, maybe they would be a weaver and they would, work with fabrics and make clothes, and they would, keep the hut clean and tidy. And then you would have, because the only thing we really need men for is a bit of muscle. That's it. So a bit of DIY. Although most women these days can do DIY. I think it's far more, superior than, men doing it. But yeah, they would just kind of gather wood, maybe kind of hunt and bring home some food. So they would literally bring home food and wood and maybe assist in building a hut. And then after that, what else can they do? Not much. So men are not really necessarily needed for anything. And I think that they know that. And I think that like all the wars that are going on now at the moment, for example, like, in Gaza and everything, I think that's like the masculine last grasp for the patriarchy, and Trump as well, and all the things that he's doing. It's basically men are starting to quiver at the knees at the thought of women rising up, which we are. So they are freaking out. And so they're having their last grasp at creating wars, creating hunger, destruction, politics, everything. But I mean, eventually that will all die down and fade away, and women will rise, and there'll be a much more bountiful, more harmonious planet. But who knows when that will be? So another thing as well is like the American Psychology did a study. The American Psychology Association did a study. 814 studies were digged up, and it showed that single people were far more connected to their friends and their family, where married people were far more insular, which is true. I know when people have a boyfriend, you don't see them again for God knows how long. And then as soon as they're single, they're back calling you up again. You go home, you have your cake and you eat it there, but then you lose your friends and you lose touch with your family. So I also kind of find as well that not that I kind of find, but it's true. This is also proven in a stat that people that are more self-sufficient are less likely to have any sort of experience with negative emotion. Can you actually believe that? Isn't that crazy? Married people seemed actually more stressed and found things more difficult. So that was part of the study as well. Married people just seem to have a lot more pressure on them. They seem to have more stress upon them. And they seem to have more difficulty with doing things like going out to socialize, or difficulty with things that single people just do on a normal basis. They found more difficulty integrating, and they found more difficulty when it came to working on anything that is to do with themselves outside of the family unit. So that was quite interesting as well. But another thing as well, I mean, come on. I find like your neighbors are absolutely super sound. I mean, I'm friendly with my neighbors. I hang out with my neighbors. I've got a load of friends, and, I hang out with them when I want to. But also I love having time to myself, reading my books, buying records and listening to music, listening to podcasts, watching TV, working on my projects, drinking wine, getting nice food, walking the dog. I mean, that's just amazing to be able to do that. Like, that's just kind of a little, I think, luxury to be able to have that abundance of time and just, learning for yourself. Because like, obviously when you're like reading books and you're out in nature, you're getting fresh air, you're working your mind, you're learning things as well. So all of these things are just so beneficial for yourself, for your mental health and your personal development. But as well, you don't have paranoia. I mean, oh my God. I could say right now that, oh my God, if I go into a relationship again, I won't care. I'll do my own thing, blah, 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 blah. But I know that in the back of my head, there might be times, that I'd be like, okay, who's he texting? Where is he going? What is he doing? Who's he talking to? Who's that person? There is that little bit, that actually big piece of paranoia that creeps in. And, when you're alone, you do not have to worry about them cheating on you at all whatsoever. So no paranoia, please, and no bloody potential cheating situations, because, my God, I would not want to be going down that road again. I can tell you that now for absolutely nothing. So yeah, so there we go. So basically as well, yep, I'm looking at my other notes here. I have like no compromise. You can do your own schedule, self-discovery. The main character in your act is you. You can do whatever you want. The art of solitude, not being lonely, just being alone. That is so me. And the ick factor, that's a huge thing actually. Mastering the ick list. So yeah, like, when you're with somebody, and like you're obviously sharing space, you're with each other at the weekends, maybe during the week, maybe you live together. And like there's certain things that you're kind of going, oh my God, could you just not do that? Could you mind like, for me, I'm very organized. I like to have a place for everything and everything in its place. And if it's not, I'm like, ick. Even Even the toilet, I'm like, you have to put the lid of the toilet seat down because I don't want like, pee and other things like, going up onto the walls, because apparently when you don't put the toilet seat down, the pressure of the water flushing your toilet away can actually give an aftermath spray where it puts like germs and bacteria into the air, which then can like, live on your sink and your walls and stuff like that. So I always put the toilet seat down when I'm flushing. But I mean, God knows men, they don't fucking do that. And like, there's so many different things. Like when they're cooking, oh my God, I remember like when I was living with somebody before, and like they had this like, pan that had, what was it, like the middle, it was basically a non-stick pan, which I was totally against anyway. And not only was it that, like, but it was also a bit cracked. And I was like, I don't think we should be using that. Now I realize like that, yeah, we shouldn't have been using that because it leaks like, billions of fucking nano and microplastics into the food. Oops. Anyway, he'd be like, oh, watch out about like, no, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. I was like, oh, I'd rather you didn't actually use that. And he's like, oh, don't be crazy, like it's absolutely fine. I mean, like the food, of course, like he was a very good cook. But I mean, again, things like that, it's like, I would rather you didn't use that, and they're insistent on using it. And it's like, okay, again, compromise. And at the end of the day, I was actually right, because looking at it now in hindsight, I was completely correct in saying that, like, those cracks are not good. And yes, it does leak chemicals. And as I mentioned, nano and microplastics into the food, so if I'd only listened to myself and just insisted, I wouldn't probably have as much microplastics in my system as I probably do. Who knows? But anyway, and even the food as well. If like I want to like eat only organic food and they go shopping and then it's not organic, it's like, I don't really want to eat that because it's not organic. And then they just think you're being pedantic, It's like, again, compromise. It's like, oh, okay, I'll eat it, fine. Oh, so many different things. I don't know. I mean, you could go on, as you know yourself, but I mean, why compromise on that's literally compromising on my actual health and well-being, because I mean, if I only want to eat organic and I don't want to eat out of a cracked non-stick pan, I think that's actually only beneficial. So the fact that I actually went, okay, I actually like, dented my health. So there you go. Like, this is another reason why I mentioned not be dictating to us, like, oh, you're just being ridiculous. You're just being, they don't want to recycle. They'll eat whatever. They'll cook out of whatever. They're just animals, really, at the end of the day. Anyway, I'm only kidding. I don't want to hate on men. Men are great in so many wonderful ways. I just wish I knew some. I'm joking. No. I do love men. All my friends are guys. Most of my friends are guys. I just wouldn't date men. I'm just like pretty comfortable. Although I am kind of getting a bit older and I kind of go, maybe I could give one little relationship a chance. But the moment I just do not feel I have time. I'm so more comfortable just pottering around. And as I mentioned, listen to podcasts or reading books, doing all these little things myself that I'm very happy and content with. I don't have time for a relationship, because even if you go on these apps, which I did before a long time ago, you're just, it's a full-time job being on a bloody app. It really is. Because like, even if you do match, you're like, oh great, do you want to go for coffee? They're like, whoa, let's chat here for a while first. And it's like, oh my God, you seriously want to chat here for like, every day after work for like weeks before you want to meet? I'm like, that's just such a colossal waste of time. Because then what if you meet then and it's like, oh God, you're way shorter than you actually said. This whole thing is a fucking catfish, and we just don't seem to have any chemistry whatsoever. You just don't kind of do it for me. And you'll have wasted hours of your evening, every evening, talking to some random person that you just didn't end up having any interest in the first place. Whereas I just think that like you should just seriously just go for coffee straight away and then you're good to go, or not. Anyway, please do like, subscribe, follow, and share this podcast. I'd really, really appreciate it. This is only episode 2 of Elevate Babe, and I'll be back with you again next Tuesday talking about more interesting things, deep diving into my experiences and my stories and my opinions on things. But I will be bringing you a really interesting podcast next week about manifestation. So one of my favorite topics. I love manifestation. So yes, manifestation has worked for me in so many different ways. So I'm really excited to share my stories with you next week. So as I said, please do like, subscribe, share, and follow. And I will have you back with me hopefully next week. Until then, elevate your life, babe.